When a major conflict breaks out in Gaza, the world's cameras converge on the scene. We see the explosions and the immediate chaos on our screens. However, news cycles are fleeting. Within weeks, the international press often moves on to the next global crisis, leaving behind a population still living under the weight of a long-term blockade. This video explores the reality of life in Gaza during those periods of quiet that the media rarely covers. We are looking at the systemic challenges that persist long after the breaking news banners disappear and the world's attention shifts elsewhere. Infrastructure in Gaza remains in a state of perpetual fragility. One of the most critical issues is the water supply. Currently, 97% of the water pumped from Gaza's sole aquifer is unfit for human consumption. This forces families to rely on expensive private desalination plants or unregulated water trucks. Electricity is equally scarce, with residents often receiving only 12 to 15 hours of power per day. These aren't temporary outages. They are a permanent way of life that dictates when people can cook, study, or run life-saving medical equipment in their homes. The economic situation in Gaza is characterized by severe restrictions on movement and trade. The unemployment rate consistently hovers around 45%, one of the highest in the world. For the youth, that number can soar even higher. Most exports are restricted, and the buffer zone along the border prevents farmers from accessing nearly 35% of Gaza's cultivable land. Fishermen are also limited to a small nautical zone, often restricted to 6 or 15 nautical miles, which severely impacts the local food supply and the livelihoods of thousands. Healthcare in Gaza is a system under constant strain. Hospitals frequently face shortages of basic supplies. On average, 40% of essential medicines are at zero stock levels, meaning there is less than a month's supply remaining. For patients with complex conditions like cancer or heart disease, treatment often requires traveling outside the Strip. However, the permit process to leave via the Erez crossing is arduous and frequently denied. This creates a situation where preventable deaths occur simply because the necessary tools or permissions are unavailable. Education is highly valued in Gaza, yet the infrastructure is crumbling. Because so many schools were damaged or destroyed and cannot be easily rebuilt due to restrictions on construction materials, most schools operate on a double shift system. This means one group of students attends in the morning and another in the afternoon, shortening the school day for everyone. Over 500,000 students are impacted by these conditions. The lack of reliable internet and electricity further hampers the ability of students to engage with modern educational resources. The mental health crisis in Gaza is perhaps the most profound yet least visible consequence of the siege. Studies show that roughly 80% of children in Gaza live with some form of emotional distress, including depression and anxiety. This is a generation that has grown up knowing only the blockade and repeated cycles of violence. Without access to comprehensive mental health services and a sense of a secure future, the psychological toll continues to mount. This toxic stress affects early childhood development and the social fabric of the entire community. The movement of goods and people into and out of Gaza is controlled through specific crossings. The Kerem Shalom crossing is the primary entry point for goods, while the Erez crossing is for people. These gates are the lifelines of the Strip, but they are subject to frequent closures based on the political climate. The Rafah crossing to Egypt is the only other major exit, but it also remains closed for long periods. This logistical bottleneck controls everything from the calories available to the population to the fuel needed for the power plant.